Junior Investigating Paranormal Society, first national paranormal organization created and ran by teens. Investigating for over 6 years, the team gives you a unique perspective on investigating the paranormal. They are now offering courses online or in person on investigating and developing your mediumship skills. For more information, contact John Covey at 540-560-9190 or email them at jips.pa@gmail.com. Participants must be 13 or older with parental consent. Welcome to Within the Chaos with your host,
Rodney Shortridge,
and co-host,
Robin Dalton.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. You can listen in by calling 516-387-1922, or you can go to the Vibe Radio Network website at blogtalkradio.com/Vibe Radio Network. We're deep within the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for listening in to Within the Chaos. My name is Rodney Shortridge, and I'll be your host tonight, along with my fiery redhead co-host, Robin Dalton.
Hey, y'all.
Tonight, our special guest is Bill Bean. Bill is a world-renowned spiritual deliverance minister, exorcist, and is known as the spiritual warrior. He is also an international known author, lecturer, and paranormal supernatural expert. A couple announcements for everybody. Everyone's invited to the 25th Annual Coal Miners Reunion. It will be held in Pocahontas, Virginia on Monday, Labor Day, September 5th, 2016, which is this year, I hope. Everyone check out the HPI Like page on Facebook for more information. BDPS, along with Within the Chaos, will be at this year's Bluefield, Virginia Autumn Jamboree on Saturday, September 10th. And also, Black Diamond will, along with the Historic Pocahontas, Inc. and the town of Pocahontas, will be hosting the 5th Annual Pocahontas Haunted Tours this year on October 1st. Tours start at 1 p.m. until 1 a.m., located in Pocahontas, Virginia. This year, we are excited to have the Vibe Radio Network come down and join us with some of the many talents from the network. We have exciting news for BDPS to add about the tours. We're actually going to have the 2 or 3 cemetery night tours this year, along with the Opera House, the jail, and the courthouse. And if anything else is to be added, I don't know. It's above my pay rate. So, how's your week, Robin?
Well, my week has been very busy. I have done nothing but work. I'm at work right now.
They let
but
you off.
other than that, pretty good.
They actually let you do this from your job.
Yes.
That's dedication right there.
I know, right?
Yeah. Well, I won't keep Mr. Bean waiting any longer. So it's my honor to welcome our special guest, Billy Bean. Bill, thank you for joining us tonight. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Rodney. Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be on with Robin and you.
Oh, thank you. Glad you're here with us.
I didn't mean to slip and call you Billy.
Well, that's what they used to call me when I was a child. So I don't hear that much anymore. But no, that was my name a long time ago.
Well, I tend to give people a nickname, and I don't mean to, and it just a slip
that
of the
was
tongue.
it, because I was a junior, and my dad was William Senior, and he was Big Bill, and I was Little Bill or Billy. That's what they called me back then.
Well, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, sir?
Sure. And I want to thank everybody out there for listening as well. I have quite a story and quite a journey. I mean, I'm a walking miracle from God. There's no exaggeration to that. I can never thank God and praise God enough for what He's done, for what He's doing, and for what He's going to do in my life. And my family was destroyed by demonic forces, and I've written 3 books, and the first one is called Dark Force. And in Dark Force, I described the events that took place with my family and I between 1970 and 1980 when we moved into a three-bedroom ranch-style home located in Glen Burnie, Maryland, in a community called Herondale. And the house was semi-dilapidated, and it had a very ominous look and feel about it from the beginning. I was 4 years old when we moved there, and I was frightened at the first sight of this place, and my sister, who was 13, was also frightened by it. My dad, William Sr., who was a master carpenter, saw this as a restoration project, and he did restore it and made it look nice. But, boy, I'll never forget the first time that I saw it. I just knew something was wrong. Even at the age of 4, I knew something was wrong with that place. And the house is located at the bottom of a downhill cul-de-sac with a very large and deep ravine located behind it. And my mother, Patricia Beam, was the first to have a paranormal supernatural experience in the house, and it took place shortly after moving in. And it took place when she was in the living room unpacking and organizing boxes. My dad had taken us. I have an older sister, Patty, and a younger brother, Bobby, and he had taken us with him for the day to allow my mother to unpack and organize in what she thought would be peace without us under her feet. And it was during the course of this process that she felt a presence come into the room. She thought that it was my dad sneaking in to play a joke on her, and she spun around fully expecting to see him, but to her shock, nothing was there. So she was perplexed by it, unnerved, taken aback, all of these things, and was eventually able to collect herself and go back to doing what she was doing. And my sister's bedroom door slammed shut by itself, and that was enough to make her go outside and wait until we came back. So that's where it began, and gradually escalated into violent physical attacks on us from these demonic entities, and it greatly contributed to the destruction of my family.
Wow.
So that's more of the supernatural than the paranormal, or would you classify that both?
Yeah, well, again, paranormal, supernatural, it can be God doing something supernaturally in a good way or in a bad way as well. God could do anything. He's the creator of all things. And it could also be Satan, the devil, that does these things. So, and you know, the term or the understanding of ghost or ghostly phenomena escapes me because I've had so many divine experiences and unfortunately demonic experiences as well. Things are pretty much black and white for me. Now, I have no doubt that these things do exist, and Jesus himself mentioned this in the Bible. But, you know, I don't have a true understanding of it, and I don't think anybody else does either. And this is where we see the scripture, Psalm 145:3, that says, "Great is the Lord, greatly to be praised. His greatness is unsearchable." So some things we'll never know, and there's a reason for that. But I can tell you this. I've had just about every type of paranormal supernatural experience you can think of. I have had enough experiences for 10 men. And through it all, God had a plan for my life. It was part of my journey. I could not be where I am now as a deliverance minister / exorcist, whatever you want to call me. I just call myself a man of God, a humble servant and a fierce warrior for him. And I couldn't be here right now in doing what I'm doing and helping other people had I not been there. So it was a necessary part of the journey, part of a preparation process to get me to where God needed and wanted me to be.
Wow. So would you consider yourself to have any special skills or talents to help you with your clients that call for your help?
Yeah, well, these are gifts from God. You know, I don't claim to be anything, but again, I do have gifts, and God does show me things, and I do see things, and get images before I even go into any of these places. You know, I can arrive at a residence, and before I even get out of the car, I start to see images, and get an idea of what's going on. But then I have to get confirmation on that. And the only way to get that type of confirmation is the first thing I do is when I get out of the vehicle, I say a land blessing. And then I go inside and I'll anoint the heads of the victim or victims or all who are present with a combination of holy oil, holy water, and holy salt. And I'll say several prayers at the front door, including a house blessing prayer. And then I will sit down with the affected person or persons. And it requires us to have some pretty gut-wrenching dialogue. It's not that I want to know people's deep and dark secrets. I have to know it. I have to know everything. The devil operates in legality. So if he feels he has a legal right to be there, he will be there, and God will allow it because of our free will. So it is part of my job to get to the root of the problem. And the only way to get to the root of the problem is for the client to be forthcoming and get this stuff up, out, and off. And that requires anywhere from 2 to 4 to 5 to 6, some cases 7 hours of gut-wrenching dialogue. And it is very painful for the victim to talk about these things, or victims. Again, but necessary. It is part of the purging process. And once this takes place, then I can engage these demonic entities in spiritual warfare, God working through me, binding and casting them out, and then going through the entire home and making sure that there's nothing left and hiding and so forth, things of that nature. So it is a process, but this is what is required. And also what is required is after these types of deliverances take place, a mindset change is required, because when we're under the influence of demonic torment, and that could be obsession, oppression, or in some cases a full possession, the enemy is in control and the person slips into a fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking. And when a person is in the fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking, nothing good is going to happen from that. There's no way to move forward. It is bondage from Satan and his minions to keep that person right there. If you keep a person in fear, you're keeping that person on low. We as human beings, we operate on frequency and vibration, each and every one of us. And so when we're in the positive, we're on high frequency, high vibration. Things are good, things are positive. Doesn't mean we're perfect or our life is perfect, but it does mean we expect things to go well, and for the most part, things do go well, and we continue to move forward no matter what. That's living on high. That's what I call warrior mode. But when we're on low frequency, low vibration, and I have been there, everything sucks. There's always a problem. There's always a drama. It's like the black clouds over a person's head. Nothing ever goes right. Nothing ever will go right. Demonic events are included in this, whether it is mental attacks or mental and physical attacks. This is all a culmination and a sea of negativity, and demonic presence is strengthened and fueled by all of the fear and negativity associated with these things. So that's on low frequency, low vibration. So that's right where the devil wants us to be. And so it's very, very essential that we break those chains and that way of thinking and step into the uncharted territory of walking in faith, strength, and courage. And again, I call that warrior mode. And when we're operating in warrior mode 24/7, we refuse to lose. We are moving forward. If we get knocked down, we're getting back up, and we become a holy bulldozer for God. That is how I live my life. That is how I will live my life for the rest of my life. And I just pray that God will continue to work through me to help other people to live that way as well.
Awesome. Yeah, if everybody could learn to live like that, things would be so much better in life.
And it's easier said than done, believe me. Again, I have been to the lowest of lows. Most of my family is gone. And Neither of my parents lived to see the age of 50, and many other family members died tragically as well. And so, and I've been on the edge of death many times through the course of my life, many life-threatening situations, and each and every time God was there with me to keep me safe for this very moment now. He had a plan for my life before I came into this world. And so, in making certain choices that were not the best choices for me, I grew up on the streets. At a very young age, I quit school in the 8th grade. This was after the tragic passing of my mother, who died 2 months after her mother, my beloved grandmother. I was on my own after that, and I quit school in the 8th grade, had to lie about my age, and went to work for a construction company, and I had to grow up very, very quickly, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. So it was very much a process that took many years for me to be able to get into the mindset to allow God to come and turn my life around.
Wow.
Well, can you explain what a demon is?
Well, God's name is Yahweh, and his name is listed 6,823 times in the Bible. Wherever you see the title of Lord, that should say Yahweh. So his mighty and holy name was covered up with the title of Lord. So Jesus' Hebrew name is Yahshua, which means Yahweh saves. Yahweh saves through him. So when Yahweh created the world, he also created this being. And we know him as the devil. He has many names. And he was originally the choir director in heaven. He was a beautifully created being that had jewels in him and pipes as well, because his purpose was to lead the praise and worship of our glorious God in heaven. That said, God knows all. So in my opinion, I believe that there was more to this. When God created this being, I really believe that he knew that this being would be consumed with envy and jealousy and would rebel and be the adversary to man. And I feel that this is necessary because, again, God gave us free will. We're free to make our choices. So, in my opinion, you cannot have God, which is all positive. He is all love. He is the creator of all things. And he created an adversary to man. So it's the positive, negative aspect. And so, again, with us being free to make choices, there is an alternate choice and an enemy out there who seeks to cause trouble and torments. And so with this created being who has been given reign, which I believe that he's having a field day currently in our world, and God's allowing this for a short time, he has a hierarchy with him of these rebel fallen angels. So a war broke out in heaven, and Michael the archangel and his warrior angels did battle with Satan the devil and the rebel angels, which was a third of the angels, and they were cast out of God's heavenly kingdom. And I believe they came down here and took human women, some of them took human women, and took them for wives, and created a hybrid offspring of giants called the Nephilim. This is why Yahweh created and caused a great flood to try and rid the earth of these beasts. They were, so again, you're looking at something that is supernatural there. These beings were part angel and part human. So they had supernatural powers. And we could do a whole show just on this, but to try and sum this up, God has allowed this seed line to exist on the planet this whole time. And if you go back to the beginning in Genesis 3, verse 13 through 15, after the act takes place in the garden, Yahweh calls Adam, Eve, and the serpent, Satan, together And he says, because you have done this with the woman, I will create enmity, which means hatred, between you and the woman. And I will create enmity, hatred, between your seed and the woman's seed. So it's stated right there clearly that Satan has a seed line. So this is a seed line and a demonic hierarchy that exists in the world. And again, God is allowing this because of free will. So just as surely as there is a glorious God who created everything, there is an adversary to man who seeks destruction. And so these things are part of a hierarchy that's based on lies and deception. And I feel that part of what a demon is and what a demon does is these things use tactics. It is fear-based, trauma-based tactics, just like a bully on a playground. And as long as these created beings can keep a person in fear, they feed off of that and they gain in strength and power and influence. And the stronger they get, the weaker the person gets, and the more control they have. And the ultimate goal is to kill, rob, and destroy. So that is their sole mission, their sole purpose. There is no kinship, no brotherhood. God has worked through me to deliver people who were worshiping Satan, making sacrifices to Satan, some really heavy-duty stuff. And there is no partnership, no kinship, no anything when it comes to the devil and his demons and a human being. And so people need to be aware of this because Satan is the original liar. He's the master manipulator. He's the master mimic. He mimics everything that God does, and he puts a vulgar twist on it. And so people can be deceived. Now, for me, I didn't come on here to preach a sermon. I came in, on your show to speak the truth. I'm a truth seeker. So I seek the truth so I know the truth, so I can speak the truth, so I can teach the truth. And the truth of the matter is, for me, God is first in my life, and God is my guide, so he gives me discernment. So this is what I always pray for others, is that they have this type of discernment, especially those who are going into situations where it's ghost hunting or thrill-seeking or whatever it is. One must be very careful of what might be lurking around the corner.
Well, see, and this is why I pray.
Well, you said something about where you talked about free will. Man has free will.
Yeah.
But a child and a baby doesn't have free will. So when an adult makes a decision, right or wrong, it's because we're taught that, but a child doesn't know that. So why is a lot of children throughout this time period and throughout history have all been treated horribly? Why God has let this or allowed this to happen?
Okay, without really knowing the answer, because again, our ways are not his ways, our thoughts are not his thoughts. But my opinion on this is that there are curses as well, and there are family bloodline curses, and God works through me all the time to break these off of people and families and things of that nature. So when a person or family is under this type of bloodline curse, that does affect others.
Okay. So how do you battle a demon?
The only way to battle a demon is to be in true step with God. And the only way to be truly in step with God is having a strong connection with God. And the only way to have a strong connection with God is to truly walk in faith, strength, and courage. Now, That said, I am not perfect. I do not claim to be perfect. I make mistakes just like everybody else. I try to do the best that I can do and be the best that I can be each and every day. But I'm real. I'm not some phony that would come on and say, oh, I never do anything wrong or I never have a bad day or anything like that. That's a lie. We're human beings, and we're all faced with a set of issues and challenges in life. What makes it different for me and for others who share in this type of faith is that when an adverse negative situation does arise, I know 100% that God is with me and for me, so he will make the way. He makes the impossible possible. So if God is with me and for me, who can be against me? And that is my philosophy. So that makes me a holy bulldozer for God that keeps me moving forward in every situation. So in order to do this kind of work, we have to have that type of mindset and commitment to God. Otherwise, we're at great risk and in grave danger, and family members are as well.
So how many types of demons do you think are out there in the world?
Well, I don't know that for sure, but I know there is a hierarchy, and I have seen and experienced many different types of demonic entities. And let me tell you this right now, there is an absolute connection between the UFO phenomena and demonic activity. And again, Satan is the copycat. He is the master mimic. He mimics everything that God does, and he puts his vulgar twist on it. So there are 70 scriptures in the Bible that talks about UFOs, that talks about our God, Yahweh, the creator of all things, riding the clouds, he that rideth on the clouds. UFOs are mentioned as clouds, pillars of a cloud, flying tabernacle, flying scrolls, flying rolls, stars, lights, you name it. It's there. If you really study the Bible, you'll see this. So why does our God, who created everything, need a vehicle to traverse the heavens, which means skies? I don't know. I don't have that answer, but I do believe that our God does have his heavenly host traverse the heavens, the skies, in some of these flying craft, and Satan being the master mimic, I believe he and his demonic hierarchy also traverse the skies in those craft. I also believe that our governments have this technology and they test out things like this, and I also further believe that in the vastness of this universe, I am firmly convinced that our God created life elsewhere out there, and if that's the case, then perhaps some of those beings have come and visited and may still be visiting. So we have 4 different factors in this, but I have no doubt, based on my own personal experiences that I talk about in my second book called Delivered, that some of this UFO phenomena, particularly the abduction type of thing, is demonic and directly connected in the demonic hierarchy. And I was nearly destroyed from this. So when you read in the second book, Delivered, you'll read about a cavalcade of these types of experiences. And for anyone who would like to see a few of these pictures, visit BillBean104.com or BillBean.net. Click on the photo gallery, and you'll see some amazing photographs that were taken of me or that I've taken over the years of paranormal, supernatural encounters with entities, both angelic and demonic, and these UFOs. And so it's just been an amazing journey, but rest assured what I'm saying is true because I've experienced it.
Well, do you think God might be an alien?
Well, again, we're thinking in our terms of understanding as human beings. So the word or term alien, we really don't even know what that means because it's beyond our understanding. We can't even begin to grasp who God is and how he works and thinks. This is why we as human beings, we only use a small percentage of our brain. And this is by design. Could you imagine if we had, 100% brain usage and capacity? We would see and hear and feel things that would probably drive us crazy. So God knew what he was doing in designing us to where we, as human beings, use a small percentage of our brain power because maybe if we used larger percentages, then we would think we were God, and so we wouldn't need him anymore, and that would lead to destruction as well. So God knows what he's doing, and some things we just don't have the answer to, and we will probably never have the answer to, and God only knows.
Right. Well, the people you've helped when you've given deliverance or exorcism, do they ever come back to report that the demon has come back, or another demon maybe coming back and tormenting them later after their exorcism?
Yes, and there are some people that God works through me to help that never has a problem again, and I'm overjoyed, and they move on, and they have, great life and just free from all the demonic garbage. And then there's others that, for whatever reasons, and I always caution people not to go back to things that they were doing prior to, and opening doorways for these demonic entities to come in. Some do just that, and they go right back and do what they were doing and open those doorways, and then they are worse off than they were before. So I go back, so there are people that I've had to go back to, and some several times. So it is a process, and this is why I was saying, earlier in the interview, it is absolutely essential for people to have a different mindset, leaving the fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking and operating, trading that in for the uncharted territory and that leap of faith to where they won't have any more fear. It is so important to eliminate the fear, because when we eliminate that fear, that's taking us into the faith-based way of thinking and having that faith, strength, and courage that God honors. So it is super important for us to at least consider what I'm saying, and then if the person can actually step into that way of thinking, the sky is the limit.
Well, I know you mentioned portals.
Yes.
Are you saying that these portals could possibly be maybe parallel universes, doorways to other universes?
It's certainly possible, Rodney, because we have things going on right now, like CERN, and now these D-Wave quantum computers that are so far beyond our understanding, it just would make your head spin. Hence the Mandela effect, and there really is something to that, especially when it comes to the scriptures being altered in our Bibles. I have been studying this now for the last 2 months, and when I first was alerted of this, I nearly fell off of my chair in my office. I couldn't believe it. The scriptures in the King James Bibles that I have had, one I've had for 20 years, and the other ones I've had for several years, and then one is in the top of my closet that is a 100-year-old Bible. These scriptures in my very own Bibles have been altered, and people are seeing this all over the world now. These scriptures are being altered in the King James Bibles. It's going to start there, and it's going to go on to other Bibles, and this is part of the CERN project, which I believe is and has been opening up these doorways and portals and stargates, and it's working in conjunction with these D-Wave quantum computers, and it is literally changing some things. And for anyone, go ahead. I'm sorry. For anyone, go ahead. You go ahead. I'll wait for your question.
Okay. What do you think, or why do you think that these scriptures have been changed? I mean, is there a reason or a point to this?
Yeah, the point is that I have no doubt that through this CERN device and these D-Wave quantum computers, they are literally able to turn back time, just like that Bon Jovi commercial for DirecTV, the power to turn back time. That's what they're doing, and they are showing what they want to do, and God is allowing this for a short time. So God made the world and made us in his image, after his likeness, after his kind. Well, Satan the devil, who is the counterfeit master mimic, now he's trying to recreate the world in his image, after his likeness, after his kind. So in doing that, they have to alter things. He copies everything that God does, and he puts a vulgar twist on it, and that's what's happening now. So they want to, I fear that within the next 2 or 3 years, the Bible may be unrecognizable. I know the scriptures. I spent years in deep studies of the King James Bible and other Bibles. There's 66 books in the King James, and there's another 534 that were left out. And I've studied these things. I'm confident in telling you that I know the scriptures very well. And when I saw some of these scriptures altered, again, it's beyond my comprehension. It's beyond my understanding. I am a man that is used to being in control of things and understanding things. And this is something that is so far beyond my comprehension. My mouth was literally open trying to understand this. But in my opinion, the enemy is trying to do this to create confusion, because there are some Christians that, I just made this statement, but there are some Christians that would say, this man's crazy. There's no way. God's word doesn't change. You can't change anything in the Bible. I wouldn't even dare look to entertain the thought of what this man is saying. That's fine. That's your choice, but that's not the truth. And the truth of the matter is, these scriptures have been altered, and they are still being altered, and I'm talking about hundreds of scriptures. And it requires obedience to God, a dedication to allow God to give discernment to move forward in truth. Knowledge is power, and power perceived is power achieved. And so we should always seek and thirst for knowledge, and if we're doing that, then God will keep our eyes wide open. So this, in my opinion, is the part of the Great Deception. This is perhaps leading into the tribulation period. Now, I don't know this. No man knows this. Only God knows when that time is going to come to where he sends Jesus Christ back, and he very well may be coming back with Jesus Christ and with thousands of angels that will rid this earth of these evildoers. And they know who they are, and they know what they're doing, and they're part of the satanic seed line that God has allowed for this period of time, and then a great purging and a great cleansing is going to come on this earth. I have no doubt about it. So it is very important for people. You don't have to believe a word I'm saying, but what I am urging you to do is to do some research into these things I'm talking about, and ask God, pray, ask him if what I'm saying is true, and do the research for yourself. And when you dig into some of these things, your eyes will become wide, very wide open.
Wow.
Well, did you have any training through the church to I guess do your exorcisms and to see the world and the way you go about your books and shows and stuff? Was there any type of training for that?
None whatsoever, Rodney. This was a true calling from God. I had no intentions of ever doing anything like this. I was a victim of this for all these years. When I was being victimized in this way, and especially after all the tragic loss in my life, especially, with my mother and my grandmother, after that happened, I didn't want to live anymore. And I grew up on the streets. I hung out with the worst of the worst people. And most of those people are dead or in prison, and I could have very easily have been dead or in prison. And I had no desire to live. I didn't want to live. I wanted somebody to come up and put a gun to my head and pull the trigger. I didn't want to wake up the next day. And I existed in that way for a long time. and it was a very empty and painful way of existing. I wasn't living; I was existing. I was surviving, and so I have had the lowest of lows in life, and God has blessed me so much now. I'm so far removed from it. It's like it happened to somebody else. So I truly have had this journey from the bottom up. So it was essential for me to suffer in that way. It was essential and part of God's plan for me to make choices that were not good for me and put me in adverse negative situations. It was all part of this journey. And so I had an epiphany one day, and I would say it was probably around 1995, somewhere in there. I decided that I could do better and be better in my life. I wanted to make God first in my life. And so I started studying. I studied anything and everything. And, it held me back for so many years having an 8th grade education. I thought, there's no way. What could I possibly do to have any kind of positive effect on the world? I'm intellectually inadequate. How in the world can I be of service or do any good for anybody? And so that in itself was a lie, because I have learned that if we have a goal, or more importantly, a calling in life from God, then no matter what the situation or circumstance is, if we answer that call and we work diligently at whatever it is, whatever the calling is, and we say we're going to do this no matter what, then God makes the impossible possible, and he works with us hand in hand, and we move forward in a great way. And that's exactly what happened with me. So I thirsted for knowledge. I began to study anything and everything, and made a lot of mistakes along the way. So it really wasn't until 2008 that I was truly delivered from everything. And that's when in 2008, I said, that's it. Because it was a process up until there. I would take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And but by the time 2008 came around, I had already done the studies. I was continuing to study the Bible and all the books associated with it, ancient history, ancient religion, you name it, I've studied it. And God has blessed me with wisdom and knowledge far beyond anything that I could ever imagine in my life. So he very much made the impossible possible with me and through me. And I was baptized in 2008. My wife and I got baptized together. It was the greatest day because we were sincere about making God first. It was a true commitment to God. And when I did that, my whole life changed. So everything was lifted off of me. Every single thing that was in a negative, adverse way that continued to plague me through my life was lifted off of me, and I started a new chapter and a new season with a clean slate moving forward. And then it wasn't long after that when God put the calling on my life to become a spiritual warrior for him. And it's something that I did not want. I was not seeking that. I didn't want any parts of it. But yet the calling was so intense that I would go to bed with that feeling on me, and I would wake up with that feeling on me. And finally, I submitted to God's will, increased my studies, and started to actually, and I got my certification, and then I began to go out and help people. And I was not comfortable doing this in the beginning. What had happened was I became a public figure when the A Haunting episode aired. So A Haunting approached me at the end of, I think it was 2005. And I don't know how they found out about my story, but they did, and they contacted me. And I agreed to do the story, and it aired on September 7th, 2006. It's one of the most watched and rebroadcasted episodes in the history of that series. And that is what put me on the map. That's what propelled me into being a public figure, and people started to contact me from all over the world. And I was in no position at that time to help anybody, and some of these messages were asking for help, so I would refer them to other people. But once I completed my studies and had the confidence that hey, this is what God has called me to do. I started to go out there and began to help people, and I was uncomfortable at first because it was uncharted territory for me. But the more I did it, the more I realized that this is my purpose and calling in life. And it's a wonderful thing when you realize why you are here and what you're here for. So it was something that I resisted, and now it's something that there's nothing else that I would rather be doing than helping people. It's the greatest joy in the world to know that God worked through me to help somebody.
Well,
Hey,
I know
oh, sorry, Ron. Go ahead.
that's all right. We're about 15 minutes left of the show, so we have a ton of questions, but we ain't going to have time for all of them. So I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit here. And what, with all your experiences, is that what inspired you to start writing and writing your book?
Well, what happened, Rodney, is, and boy, did that time go by. I knew it would because we had a lot to talk about, so maybe in the future we can do a part two.
Oh, yeah.
What had happened is when a haunting had contacted me, I had a close friend of mine, John D. Romine, that was actually writing my story, which was going to be he wrote the first draft of Dark Force. And John's a very intelligent man, very gifted writer. But after he had written the draft, it wasn't me. It wasn't, and family members read it, and no reflection on John. Again, he's a brilliant man, great writer. But it needed to be me telling the story. And again, now, at that point in time, I'm a man with an 8th grade education and still seeking wisdom and knowledge, and God is increasing my wisdom and knowledge, but I'm still very much a student, soaking and thirsting for knowledge. That said, I knew that the book could not go out there written by somebody else. So I said, okay, I talked with John, and he was disappointed, and believe me, I felt bad about it, but the book just could not go out there like that. So I decided that I was going to write it myself, and I sat down and I committed 2 to 4 hours every evening until it was completed. And I prayed about it because in the beginning, it was awful. I couldn't do anything. And I said to God, I said, if you really want me to do this, I need your help. I was ready to just forget the whole thing and just say, that's it, I'm done. But it was like a switch had turned on. And then I started typing and everything started flowing. And I had serious commitment every night, whether I felt like it or not, that I was going to sit down 2 to 4 hours every night until this was completed. That's exactly what I did. And it's just a miracle from God. My wife helped me a lot as well with the spelling and diction and punctuation and things of that nature. But it was a real process, and it required a real commitment. And once the book got out there, it received tremendous response, and still does to this day. And I'm very thankful to God for that. And then the second book was easier because I had already had the pattern and the formula, from the first book. So I took it right there, and the story just picked up where it left off from Dark Force. And I've, had many paranormal, supernatural experiences, divine and demonic, in my adult years, and continue to have many divine experiences, to this day, and I praise God for it. So then the third book, which is called 10 Steps to Victory, is a very small book. I had no intention of writing. I knew someday that I would write a third book, but not at that time, because when I became this spiritual warrior, it's just exploded. People contact me from all over the world. My messages are always full. My cell phone voicemail is always full, text and emails, everything. And so it's a process just to get back to everybody. And so it's very difficult for me to focus on writing, another book. But God gave me a vision on a Saturday morning in, I believe, 2012. And I got up and started writing and finished the book in a very short time. It's like a 50-page book, and I did it like a little handbook that It's a guide. That's exactly what it is. It's a guide. 10 simple steps that you can take to have a better life and to have peace and to have blessings and to be a blessing to others. And so that's what I did, and that little book is nothing but goodness from the first page to the last page. And I'm very thankful to God that He put it on me to get that out there. So, those are the 3 books. And for anyone out there who would like to get copies, you can visit BillBean.net or BillBeanMinistries.com and order your copies. And there will be a 4th book sometime in the future. Not right now. I'm just so busy. It's not possible. But there will be a 4th book coming down the road.
Well, Bill, where do you think the future of the paranormal and the supernatural world is heading?
Well, I think the future in general is heading in a big shift, and it has already started. And I urge people, seek the truth. Seek wisdom, seek knowledge, and the only way you're going to be able to find these things is through our glorious God. And this is why He had Jesus, Yeshua, to come into the world as the guide, as the person who followed the path that God laid out. And so He is the guide, and He is the one that we should be following on the path back to God. And again, I didn't come here to preach a sermon. I just came here to speak truth. And if we can explore these possibilities, then God will reveal much more to us than we ever thought was possible.
Well, what are your thoughts about the religious ramifications if and when it's public that we may not be alone in the universe?
Well, unfortunately, and again, this is my opinion, I feel that the people in the high places, most, have been contaminated, and that includes our churches. In Christianity, there's 34,000 different Christian denominations. There are 1,200 in the United States. I'd say that's a big problem because the Bible and the Scriptures are based on interpretation. So I can read Psalm 91 and say it means this, and you guys can read it and say, no, I think it means that. You say, no, I think it means that. Now we have 3 different interpretations. And so that would be 3 different denominations because it's based on your interpretation of that. And this is what we have. And I feel that Satan is behind it because he's the author of division and confusion. So he's infiltrated right there. I have heard some Christian pastors damn others to hell, saying that if you don't believe the way we believe, you're hellbound. This is garbage. This is nonsense. And it is not for any man to pass judgment on another in that way. We're going to stand accountable, and we're all guilty of something. And we'll stand for it. Believe me, we'll be held accountable for it. But it's not up to any man to pass that on us. So I'm non-denomination, which means I don't follow any of them. And I have nothing against them or anybody else. But again, I'm really trying to walk in truth. So I'm non-denomination. I let God guide me. I don't follow any man. And so in saying that, I feel that a lot of today's churches have sold out. And you're not going to get the truth. If I were to walk into a lot of churches speaking like this, they would call the police on me to get me out of there. They don't want this. They have a cookie-cutter way of going about this, and most of the message is a prosperity message, so they want your money. And not all, but a lot. And I'm sorry to say this, but it is true. And so when we give, if we're not giving with a glad heart, you might as well light that money on fire. There's no blessing on that. If you're giving because you are shamed or you are put in a fear-based way of thinking, oh, if I don't give, I'm going to go to hell because the pastor said, those who don't tithe, they're going to go to hell and all this kind of stuff, you might as well light a match to that money. There's no blessing on that. And all you did was help to enrich them. We have to give because we want to give. And if we give with a glad heart, there's a blessing on that. Any other way, forget it.
Right. So do you ever capture any evidence on audio, video, or still camera of any paranormal activity during your cases?
I'm not. I don't do that, and I'll tell you why. Because I already feel things. I already feel it. I already know it's there, and if something is really there, I don't need any confirmation through video or audio or anything else. If I know it's there, then my job, God working through me, is to get rid of it. And I have many photographs and video as well before becoming a deliverance minister. Through my own experiences that, some are on my website, some of these photographs, and I've shot hours and hours of video of these unidentified flying objects coming to me, literally. I mean, my footage has been on the 6 o'clock news, the 11 o'clock news, the 10 o'clock news, cover story, Fox News, you name it. I mean, the media took me seriously on this footage, and I've had media outlets from all over the world contact me about this footage. So that was when I was an experiencer. But now, in who I am now, in the calling I have that God has put on me, there is no more process of trying to capture anything. And I've seen things, believe me, and heard things as well, as binding and casting things out by the mighty power of Yahweh in Jesus' name. I have seen entities materialize and go. I have heard shrieks like you've never heard in your life of these demonic entities leaving when God working through me, binding and casting these things out. So, I've had the experiences. I've had the experiences of people being totally possessed, including a loved one, and that's in my second book, Delivered, that account. And, people now, some, in being a deliverance minister, being fully possessed. So I have seen these things, but there's no need for me to quantify this any longer with any type of video or photograph or audio.
Well, seeing how we're about 3 minutes left, do you have any special upcoming projects you're working on that you could talk about real quick?
Well, I do have another episode of A Haunting, and I want to thank Tricia Dozier over at A Haunting. She's a very good friend of mine. I want to thank her for using some of my case files. I have a very good relationship with the A Haunting series, and I've been featured in several episodes. I'm going to be featured in another one. Don't know the date yet. We're thinking it's probably going to be the end of the month, and when I find out for sure what that date is, then I'll let you guys know. But this will be about a family in New York that suffered greatly demonic torments, and God worked through me to help them. And very sad and tragic story. And I'm happy to tell you that they have found God and are doing much better now. And they have become very good friends of mine, and I keep in regular contact with them. So this should be a very, very powerful episode, and I'm thankful again to be a part of it, and I'm sure there will be other episodes coming up based on my case files.
Excuse me. Well, you got any contact information you want to put out there? I know you've mentioned it a couple of times, but we've got a couple of minutes left, and any website, any Facebook, anything like that you want to put out there, you go right ahead, bud.
Okay, and I want to thank you guys again for having me on. It's been great. I knew the time was going to go by fast, and look forward to it again in the future. And thank you to the listeners and people in chat as well. And for anybody that is in spiritual need and you're having a rough time in your life, or you just want to order copies of my books, please visit BillBean.net or BillBeanMinistries.com. And I answer every single message. And really now I'm so busy, and I have a great assistant named Melinda that gets back to the people before I do. And then we follow up from there. But I'm blessed to have Melinda's assistance in this, because it just gets so hectic. It's you would have to see it to believe it on a daily basis. But I'm very thankful to God for everything that He's doing, and I just want to continue to move forward in helping others.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. We will have you back on because I could spend all night talking to you.
My brother, we got a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
The next time we come back, I will quote some of those scripture changes for you, and you just won't believe it. You won't believe how these things are being altered. So that's a whole other show. And like I said, the next time we'll come back and maybe we can dig into some of that stuff, and it will be eye-opening for sure.
Well, I look forward to it, Bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. God bless you. Have a great evening, and look forward to coming back.
You too, Bill. Have a good night. Thanks again. Well, that's it for us tonight, everyone. I want to thank Bill for coming on the show, and thank everyone who took the time to listen in. Big shout-out to Vibe Radio Network and also to the first responders and our men and women in armed services. Thank you for your service. Next week's guest, September 8th, will be author and occult expert Michelle Malachou. So turn in next week to another exciting show.
Night, y'all.
Yo, everybody get up! Everybody get up! Everybody needs to understand that I'm more than simply a hype man for this rap group, just like Geico is more than just a company that can save you money. Geico also has fast and friendly claim service, so they can help you when you need it most. And while I do love being a hype man, I also love reading for children's audiobooks. Like Little Bo Peep, she lost a sheep, and she don't know where to find them. Yo!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.